Welcome everybody to the Weekly Grind, episode number 3. I am your host, Keith Fabbri, with my co-host tonight, Carrie Cameron and Doctortoddlee. Guys, how we doing?
Good. How you doing?
I'm all right. Todd, how you doing?
Fantastic.
Fantastic. Todd, you're probably eating right now, aren't you?
Yes.
I can tell. Sounds like your mouth is full of shit. Or a dick. I'm not sure which one.
Oh. Tommy's eating too. I've got him on video. I'm just going to be a tattletale.
Okay. With us tonight, guys, we have our special guest tonight, Tommy Stiles, NPC bodybuilder. Is actually competing in the Central States and in the Western. Is that correct, Tommy?
That's right, Keith. Thanks for having me. What's up, Todd? Gary?
What's up, man? Nice to finally meet you.
I don't think we've ever talked.
No. We have mutual friends.
Yeah.
Wait, there's somebody you haven't talked to, Todd?
I know, right?
Well, guys, we got Tommy on here tonight. We're talking a little bit of training tonight and different training styles and stuff. Tommy is a DC advocate, like myself. He likes to use DC training or a variation of DC training. We'll have him on here to talk about how he does it, because it's probably a little bit different. But Tommy, why don't you introduce yourself to us and tell us your contest history and what you're doing right now currently, and we'll go from there.
Hey, Keith.
What?
You missed Todd's line.
I missed Todd's line? What did he say? I don't know what you're talking about. Enlighten me, Carrie.
I don't either.
Enlighten me. All right. Tommy, go ahead.
Like Keith said, I'm Tommy Stiles. I live in Royal Oak, train at the Royal Oak Gym. I've been competitive bodybuilding for 3 years now. I've done 2 shows, and like you said, I've got 2 shows coming up, Central States and the Western. Started out as a middleweight. Really had no business being up there, but I jumped right into a prep and went on stage at a large 172. And then got waxed at the Western in 2014. Pretty much knew I needed to put on a ton of muscle on every part of my body, so I took a year and a half off and just started training different ways. I didn't really find DC yet, though, and then I did the Michigan last year in 2016, and I moved up to a light heavy. I put on 16 pounds of stage weight. So, but I mean, the goal was to put on muscle, and that was the same goal this off season. After the Michigan, after I reversed out, I had found DC, and I had found Cycles for Pennies. I had never read it before. I'm kind of younger, 26. So I had planned that was going to be my off season as I was in prep for the Michigan. And I started right into it. And I mean, I put on 38 pounds in 10 weeks after the show. So I was well on my way. And then I kind of rolled with that through the year. I linked up with Jordan Peters. So I'm sure everyone's seen his videos.
Yep.
He wrote me a training program with a little bit more volume than traditional DC. Some of Scott Stevenson's Fortitude training, muscle rounds. So pretty much the basis, though, is, I mean, the logbook, beat the logbook, add more weight to the bar, do more reps than you did the previous time out. It's constantly beating yourself, so that's what I stick to. I mean, Keith and I, we've talked a lot about different variations, and I think we both come down to the same thing. It's about progressive overload in one way or the other.
Yep, definitely. So you started off with straight DC training every other day or 3 days a week, with splitting the body in half.
Yeah, I did the basic beginner program just because I knew I needed to really add quality size to my physique. I'm taller. I'm almost 5'11", so on the bodybuilding stage, I'm like Kareem.
Carrie, you're back with us. We lost you there for a second. I saw you come in.
Yeah, I turned my Wi-Fi off.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it happens. Yeah, you know, Tommy, I did straight DC when I first started out too. When I first started competing, it was, I believe I was doing 3 days out of 7, Monday, Wednesday, Friday split, then take 2 days off, and then start over again with would be workouts A, B, A, B, A, B, back and forth. And it's a similar thing. You know, I did the beginner plan, basically Dante Trudell's plan. And that's pretty much what I did too. I put on quite a bit of size. Over time now I've progressed into doing a little bit different. And I kind of have a variation between that and the Dorian Yates style training, and we'll talk about it a little bit. Todd, why don't you talk about a little bit about your training program that you have? You have your own protocol that you like to use.
Yeah, it's called T4R. Is that loud enough?
Yeah, it's perfect.
Okay. Perfect. All right, so it's called T4R, Training for Ragnarok. And so it's a double entendre. First of all, my team since 2009 has been called Operation Ragnarok. It was originally going to be called Project Valkyrie because I had only chicks on the team, but then Tom Cruise came up with a Nazi movie called Valkyrie, and I was like, well, I live in Howell, and everyone here has blonde hair and blue eyes. When they see me coming to Detroit and other cities, they're going to think that we're all a bunch of Nazis from Howell. So I got to change the name of the team. So they changed the team to Operation Ragnarok. And so T4R, Training for Ragnarok. Ragnarok is the Viking apocalypse. It specifically means twilight of the gods, where twilight's death. So the gods die defending Earth. And so every week is a different, themed after a different god. So Thor week is a 5x5 week where you're trying to get the healthiest approach to powerlifting, which is the 5 rep. I find that 1 rep, 3 rep really jacks you up. 5 reps you can kind of survive if you only do it once a month.
Right.
So Thor week's based off of Reg Park's 5x5 system.
Okay.
So for example, let's say you're going to try to shoot for 315 for 5 on any lift. You would do 135 for 5, 185 for 5, 225 for 5, 275 for 5, building up, kind of like Dorian with too many warm-up sets.
Sure.
Then you do your 5 for 5, your 5th set. If you can get 5 reps, then you try for a 6th set and you add 2.5 to each side.
Okay.
And like DC, you try to beat the book. Next month, you try to get another rep or another 2 to 5%.
So it's still progressive overload.
Progressive overload on almost every week. That's Thor week. Then you basically go do 4 of 8 with another compound. So, for instance, if you're doing chest, you do flat bench 5 of 5, you do incline bench 4 of 8. Then you go on to some hypertrophy FST 7 with sets of 8. So basically pec deck, 7 sets of 8 with a 30-second rest. And that would be that's really small volume, heavy weight. Then the next week is Freya week, which is based off of Kai Green's approach, which is two different exercises, superset, 15 reps for upper body, 20 reps for lower body.
Okay.
It's a ton of volume, like my shoulder workout, 720 reps. And you're using next to nothing for weight, but you get the most insane pump. So the idea is if week 1, you're working the 2X fibers and the joints and the ligaments, you're going to get a lot of trauma, micro tears. The second week, because it's so much volume,
it's more therapy.
You're flushing the area with blood.
Yep.
So it's going to help recuperate from week 1 and allow those muscle fibers, the white fibers, to relax.
Okay.
So that you're only hitting the white fibers on week 1. You're hitting the red fibers on week 2. It's like a ton of rest for week 3, which is your actual hypertrophy week, which is Fenris week, the werewolf god of war. And I did that like Dorian Yates' Blood and Guts.
Okay.
More like the DC training, but you don't have to use rest pause. It depends on the exercise in question. Some things work better with a drop set, like bench press. Some things work better like with rest pause, like shrugs, or drop set. Some things are better with force negatives, like lying leg curls. Not everything uses the exact same advanced modifier, but principally you're going to try to get a failure range of 6 to 9 reps, but with your final set, you usually do 2 or 3 warm-up sets like Dorian, 1 or 2 warm-up sets like Dorian. Do a real Fenris set is if you fail under 10 reps, if you're in that 6 to 9 rep range, a Fenris set's initiated, and your partner helps you get up to 12 to 17 reps.
Right.
You're doing force negatives or partials or whatever. You do way more reps than you normally could. Progressive, like resistance as well.
Right.
On the first and the third weeks, you track your progress. Then week 4, Loki, it looks easy on paper, but it's really hard because it's an FST 7 pre-exhaust with 7 sets of 12 isolation move. and then you just get to traditional West Coast training, which is 3 sets of 10.
And you're doing compound movements afterwards, right?
Yeah, so basically for chest again, you do your pec deck for 7 sets of 12, pec deck, and then, well, really I do cables, and then I do different angles, and then you go on to